What comes included in the box is a pouch with all of the modular cables. You also get two plugs, one is for the UK market and one is for the European market. We also get a power supply user guide, which when we open this up we can see inside it tells you about the special features, product information, wire set and cable configuration, installation, warning, self-troubleshooting and the power connector introduction as well. We also get the power supply itself. As said, it does come with this pouch which houses all of the modular cables, and as you can see there are a lot. Obviously there are some cables that are hardwired to the power supply, but the majority of it is modular. And just taking a look at these cables we can see that the connectors that actually go into the power supply look very much like a PCI Express 6-pin connector. So this end actually goes into the power supply, which then comes off into these Molex connectors. We can also see that this one, we have an 8-pin connector which looks very similar to a PCI Express 8-pin connector, but we can see the PCI Express connector here, which is actually a 6-pin and a 2-pin, which obviously you can place together to turn into an 8-pin. So you do know that this one is for PCI Express because it has got the branding on there. You can also see that we have a 6-pin which goes into the power supply into some more Molexes. Have another one with 6-pin into the power supply, two more Molexes. Another PCI Express modular cable. This time we have a 6-pin connector which goes into the power supply, which then comes off into some serial ATA power connectors, and another one of those, and yet another one. We have this one, which is actually an extender cable. It's not one of the modular cables, it is an extender, so you have a 4-pin Molex here, and then we have a floppy drive connector, or sometimes these can be used for other parts of the computer such as fan controllers and so forth. And we can see that we have yet another serial ATA modular cable as well. Now, looking at XFX and the various different products that they do, there's not a lot of people out there who are aware that XFX make power supplies. In a way they do, in a way they don't. XFX are one of the leading manufacturers for graphics cards out there. They used to supply Nvidia based graphics cards as well as AMD, but now they solely do AMD based graphics cards and of course now power supplies. Now, this particular power supply is part of the Black Edition, and in the Black Edition power supplies you will find the 750 watt, which is the one that we're looking at today, and the 850 watt, which is one that we will be looking at very, very shortly. If you've already been on eTechnics.com, you will find that we have reviewed the 650 watt version of this power supply, which is actually a XXX edition. Now, XFX actually get these power supplies from Seasonic, so they are actually rebranded Seasonic power supplies, but that's not a biggie because Seasonic makes some of the best power supplies on the market, so we've got a lot of faith in this one, especially after testing the 650 watt and sort of seeing what the performance is like. We should be getting some fantastic results from the 750 and of course the 850 watt when we come to look at that. This is part of the Black Edition, as said, along with the 850, and then the 650 watt is part of the XXX edition. Now, XFX have actually brought out some more power supplies now called the Core Edition. And if you go onto their website, you can find a lot more information on this power supply, as well as all of the other relevant models that they do. When we record our video reviews, we do try to make it so that we don't sound very repetitive, but there is something that I need to say about this power supply, like I do with all of our power supply reviews, and that is about the actual purchasing information and what you should really look for when buying a power supply like this. Now, the first thing that I look for is build quality. Okay, you want a power supply that's going to be good build quality. Now, there are obviously manufacturers on there who try to get their sort of foot in the marketplace, and by doing that they do bring out some very lousy products that aren't fantastic with build quality, and the capacitors and things like that are extremely shoddy. Now, XFX, as said, their power supplies are actually rebranded Seasonic, and Seasonic have made some of the best power supplies on the market, so I've got complete faith in this. Other good manufacturers that you could buy from would be Corsair, Thermaltake, and there's a few others out there as well. Other things that I look for when buying a power supply is the wattage. Now, obviously you want a power supply that's going to be ample for your system, so if you are powering a lot of, say, Radeon 5970s in crossfire mode, then you are going to have some problems and you will need, obviously, a bigger power supply. This particular power supply is a 750 watt model, and it is continuous power. When you look at some models of power supplies out there, they do claim that they are a certain wattage, but that is their peak power, so just be sure that you actually research into it. But you've got no fear of that with XFX, because it has got a 750 watt continuous stream of power, and it's also got a single 12-volt rail. Other power supplies out there on the market actually have multiple 12-volt rails, which sometimes can be a good thing because obviously it distributes the power a little bit better, but with regards to some other power supplies, by having multiple 12-volt rails, it means more things can go wrong. With this, it has one single 12-volt rail. Other things that I also look for when buying a power supply is the efficiency. Now, this power supply has an 80 plus silver efficiency, and you can find more information on that on, once again, XFX's website, or if you go onto Google and search for 80 plus efficiency, it will give you all the details on what the bronze and silver and gold ratings actually mean when it comes to a power supply. Now, even though this is a modular power supply, and if we move these cables out of the way, we can see exactly where the modular cables would plug in. So we've got 3 6-pins, another 3 6-pins, and 2 8-pins, which are obviously for the graphics cards. These ones are for your serial ATA and Molex connectors. There are also some cables that are hardwired, and the reason for this is every system is going to need most of these cables. So when we actually look through it, we can see that we have our main ATX power connector there. We have an 8-pin power connector there. PCI Express 6-pin with the additional 2-pin connector there, and we can also see down in here we have a 4-pin and a 4-pin, which obviously clip together to make into another 8-pin power connector. So all these cables are hardwired, and you can see that they are all braided just like the modular cables. And the reason that they have kept these hardwired is purely because every computer is going to need this connector. Every computer is going to need either the 4, 6 or 8-pin connector, and most computers these days will require the PCI Express power connector. So you may find if you were to buy this power supply, you may not even need to use the modular cables. Depending on your system, you may have all of the relevant cables here. Obviously you will need some for your hard drives and optical drives, but you may have external devices, so that would rule out having the modular cables completely. Now, if you've seen the 650 watt review that we did of the XFX power supply, you'll notice that we talked quite a lot about styling, and this one is no different. It is absolutely beautiful. It's all encased in metal, and it's a gun metal grey colour, and we can see that it does feature the green fan on top. You can actually get this power supply in grey or green, so depending on your preference. Personally, I prefer the green. I think it's quite leery and quite sort of out there, but I've got no problem with that. So you have got the green fan there. We've also got the gunmetal casing, and then this badge over here, which has the XFX logo, the slogan "Play Hard," and tells us that it's the Black Edition. Now, taking a look at the back of the power supply, we can see that it has this mesh design. Now, when we looked at the 650 watt, we did notice that there was a badge in the middle here, and also an XFX badge here. On this one, for some reason, there isn't one, and it may be because it's a Black Edition compared to the XXX edition, but I'm not quite sure why that has been left out, but hopefully that is the reason. As you can see though, there is a mesh design on the back of it, which is going to help with heat dissipation, and we can see exactly where the power switch is and where the power cord goes in as well. And taking a look at this side of the power supply, we can see this is where all of the relevant information is that we may need to know, which, if this is mounted in your case at the top of the case, you will find that this information will be on display to you, which is quite handy because it has the part number and serial number on there. So obviously if you have any RMA issues, anything like that, you can quote these numbers quite easily without having to take the power supply out. Now, other information that you can find on here is the model number and name, which is the 750 watt XFX power supply Black Edition. The model is XPS-750W-BES, and it does tell us the AC input and the DC output, as well as the relevant caution stickers that we would notice on a product like this. And we can see the 80 plus silver efficiency rating logo printed down here. And now take a quick listen to the 750 watt Black Edition power supply in action. When XFX sent us the 750 watt Black Edition power supply, they also sent us the 650 watt and the 850 watt, and throughout the past couple of weeks we have been rigorously testing them. As you can see from the benchmarks, we did get some really stable rails with this, and XFX believe that you don't really need multiple 12 volt rails as long as you have one stable 12 volt rail, which a lot of companies out there don't realise, and they do decide to try and make multiple rails out of a power supply. But you will actually find that this power supply isn't technically made by XFX, it's actually a rebranded Seasonic power supply. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that means that you're getting fantastic build quality from some of the best power supplies in the world today, but also getting the customer service and the branding and marketing from XFX, which we all know is fantastic. This power supply to me ticks all the right boxes. It is from a reliable manufacturer. It does offer a very good wattage. 750 watt should power the most extreme gaming systems out there today, because it is continuous power at a low temperature as well, 50 degrees. You will also find that it has that 80 plus silver efficiency rating. So in my books, this really does sort of cater for everything that you'd need when actually looking for a power supply and ready to purchase one. So if I was going to buy a power supply today, I'd definitely recommend the 750 watt Black Edition power supply from XFX.